Day 1323 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 1,118,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,010 in the past day. Then as for hardware, 2 tanks, 5 APVs, 26 artillery, a rocket launcher, and 1 air defense system. As for the tank count, according to calculations made by open source intelligence researchers, the amount of Russian tanks in decent condition remaining in storage is 0. At least from an aggregated subselection of available data points on a number of Russian storage sites. In this data's findings, 1,656 are in poor condition, and 1,231 of the tanks are considered to be in worse condition. Of course, there's still tanks within the Russian army, but this data generally suggests that the option to refurbish tanks has become severely limited, leading to all sorts of tank rationing due to the difficulty in replacing their losses. These figures can be taken with a grain of salt, if you will. Nonetheless, the battlefield reality of fewer Russian tanks strongly correlates with this latest data. Hashtag two-wheel army. Now to the map, where Russian airspace was treated to a dazzling display of unexplained atmospheric phenomena lighting up the night and morning sky, accompanied by more than the occasional soothing symphony of buzzing overhead. Take this latest example of a fire that broke out at the Zavod industrial plant in Novosibirsk, over 2,000 miles away from Ukraine, and being one of Russia's key electronics and microcircuit producers tied to the defense sector. Local reports describe flames sweeping through part of the facility that handles soldering and assembly for communications and weapons-related systems. This plant represents a specialized segment of Russia's microelectronics, and a high-volume one at that. As such, any disruption compounds the strain on an already sanctioned industry struggling to source imported components. This location is too far away for your long-ranged AFU UAV, leading to mystery that always surrounds these events, with fires at dual-use industrial sites that have reoccurred this year across multiple Russian regions, a pattern that highlights persistent vulnerabilities in the aging electrical infrastructure and industrial safety systems. Well, either that or Sergei the Smoker. Then 1,600 kilometers, or about 1,000 miles from Ukraine, another fire broke out overnight at the Ural Turbine Works facility in Yekaterinburg, as a warehouse workshop roof collapsed during the blaze, covering a space of approximately 1,000 square meters, or about 11,000 square feet. Claims of a UAV strike remain unverified, though the plant's press service themselves made a statement that the fire broke out at an unrelated furniture store next door. Ah, the old furniture store excuse. It's been used by Russia a number of times now. Enough to make you wonder why furniture stores are always in such close proximity to such relevant military-industrial infrastructure. And speaking of, this plant is a major producer of steam and gas turbines for Russia's thermal and nuclear power stations, and builds propulsion turbines for the Navy. All of which makes for a top-tier facility that is a relevant target for the AFU. Then into the western region, as a railway line between Russia's Leningrad and its southern frontier was sabotaged overnight, derailing a military cargo train and halting traffic on one of the key supply routes linking St. Petersburg and Peskov. Regional and federal agencies blamed illegal interference by third parties, while Russian railways themselves were very quick to call it technical issues in their initial description, with the contrary explanations a sign of a miscommunication among different Russian departments on their choice of how to steer their non-war PR campaign. Aside from that little mix-up, independent sources and Ukrainian intelligence attributed the incident to partisan saboteurs targeting the military logistics, but with a non-zero chance it could have been caused by blind locomotive operators instead, as authorities from the very same region at the very same time have just busted a menthol-laced Mr. Cider bootleg alcohol black market producer with this toxic methanol, a cheap ethanol substitute, known to cause acidosis and blindness. Well, anything's possible. Following that mishap, fire signatures were spotted in the area of the Ukrainovskaya electrical substation in the Rostov region, likely related to Ukraine's latest campaign of putting these sites out of action, though not confirmed the cause as yet. And then 2 more fires with the Feodosia oil depot in Crimea that has now burned for a 3rd consecutive day following the October 6 drone strike by Ukrainian forces. Satellite and open source imagery continues to show thick plumes of smoke extending roughly 21 kilometers from the storage yard, with occupation authorities conceding that the fire has spread to additional tanks beyond those initially hit. So it's an event that has been evolving since the evening of Putin's 73rd birthday, yesterday, but also an event that was impossible for me to shake the feeling of deja vu about. So taking a look back in time, we see precisely the same event happening last year on the morning of Putin's birthday, October 7th, 2024, where a fire at the same depot raged for 4 days and destroyed 12 tanks, 12 out of 34, to celebrate the Russian leaders coming into earthly existence. Same was the case on the Russian fire map, as part of Putin's pre-birthday celebrations this year, with more fires reported at the Tyumen oil refinery in western Siberia, which is, most impressively, expected to be a record-range drone attack that reached roughly 2,000 to 2,100 kilometers from the border. It's been reported that 2 UAVs hit processing units at the site, damaging a distillation column and parts of the water system, as per Astra and regional reporting. Then to Belgorod and Voronezh, where drones were spotted traversing the skies. Air defense may have been asleep, out for the count, so close to the border. And Belgorod had even seen the spark of more friendly fire moments after its Russian air defense units located nearby hit the rooftop of a high-rise residential building. Meanwhile, the Belgorod regional governor, Gladkov, made some unusual statements this time, urging residents to correctly assess the situation and secure alternative energy sources, which is certainly a concerning statement with an upcoming cold Russian winter on their hands, and a tall order for locals, especially as many of them are living in some of these old, unimaginative, Soviet-era multi-story residential buildings. As for the rest, Gladkov generally refers to gasoline generators, but wait, there's not exactly much of that to go around at the moment, is there? With gasoline rationed limits imposed in many regions, which leads one to think there's not going to be many trees left standing in Belgorod after this winter. And due to this overall situation that Russia now finds itself facing, Belarusian fuel exports to the motherland have surged as the country faces domestic shortages, with the quadrupled export increase that shows itself from last month, with 49,000 tons of gasoline and 33,000 tons of diesel delivered to Russia. Now, to put this in real terms, in a simplified and down-to-earth kind of way, these outputs equate to about a day's worth of oil production outputs at your average Russian oil refinery, or better put, meaning that an entire month of Belarusian exports only reached the output levels of 1 day's worth of work by a single Russian refinery. Literally a drop in the bucket. Belarus was never designed to carry this load, not that they ever could. They're 1/16th the population and a mere fraction of the size of Russia. Now to the main map, with Russian forces keeping their chips on the Sumy table, where they advanced to, or near to, Novomikhailivka on this northern front. Oddly refreshing, and I've mentioned it before, as contested grounds in the north go a long way to extend Russian army commitments along a much wider arc comparatively to their opposing Ukrainian counterparts, with Moscow's ability to advance in their priority eastern sector becoming inherently affected when their movements along the northern border force them to spread manpower and equipment outward, undermining momentum where they want it most. And within that context, into Dobrapilla and Pokrovsk, with no less than 21 clashes in settlements at the frontline region in the past day. No decisive movements have been reported either way today, although the grim reality faced remains unchanged, as one Russian soldier describes on social media, explaining that the deeper the position, the fewer the signs of life. With long days and months under canvas, exhausted troops, and time marked only by dawn photos. During rest, some soldiers stare with disgust at rear-based, well-groomed troops, while others resent orders to sign contracts or face immediate assault duty. Adding to that, another Russian soldier described an even more grim reality faced, and just to use his words here, quote, "Only 6 people survived out of 100 in one battle. The entire company was wiped out. We were attacking Novopil," end quote. With this coming from a Russian contract soldier from Vladivostok, all the way on the east coast of Russia, as he recounts the catastrophic losses suffered during attempts to advance toward the administrative border of Donetsk. It's a sentiment that's expressed quite a lot, with invaders somehow believing that reaching said administrative border will somehow end their difficult plight. But the reality would be just more of the same. So it's conditions like these that are becoming rather apparent, because also found in this eastern sector, footage of Russian soldiers mounting 73mm guns from the first-gen BMP-1 infantry fighting vehicles onto old, low-profile civilian pickup trucks as part of this latest monstrosity of a Russian hardware update. This Mad Max design turns a fragile civilian vehicle into a wildly unstable, poorly protected weapons platform, one that's inaccurate, dangerous to its crew, and easy to destroy. A BMP-1's 73mm cannon is designed for your traditional tracked infantry fighting vehicle with a turret and reinforced mount, which produces forces that a light pickup chassis and suspension were not built to absorb. That means terrible accuracy, frequent mechanical failures, and a high chance the mount or vehicle will be damaged, and even risk the car getting flipped over when the gun fires. It also happens to give additional credence to the earlier data on insufficient tank refurbs available. Also on the map, a bigger day of artillery losses, shown with fighters of the 44th Artillery Brigade, taking out several guns, ammunition, and Russian launch positions using drones, with several D-30 122mm and 2 Mr. B 152mm Russian artillery platforms destroyed. Then to the southeastern axis, with details emerging of the assault on the village of Shavin by a unit of the 141st Mechanized Brigade, where during the clearing operations, Ukrainian fighters were able to take in newly minted POWs, in total 8 more for the exchange fund. Then to the news, with the question of whether Ukraine will or will not receive US long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles that has swung back and forth, driven by requests from Kyiv and caution in Washington. Ukrainian officials have pressed for the missiles to expand their deep strike reach, with US policymakers, including Vice President J.D. Vance, that confirmed the request is under active review, while President Donald Trump says he has sort of made a decision, quote-unquote, on the matter, but insists on detailed rules governing use before authorizing a shipment. This all means that should Ukraine receive this cruise missile type, then the Tomahawk range utility would likely be limited to use within occupied Ukraine, such as the eastern Donbass and marginally along the country's borderlines for use against strategic hubs deemed worthy in Kursk or Belgorod, for instance. Of course, we cannot forget Crimea at a maximum depth of 350 kilometers or 220 miles from Ukrainian front lines. However, with geopolitical delays and the need for training launching crews on the ground platform variant, it's difficult to imagine we'll see them anytime soon, though we have been surprised with inbound military aid shipments to Ukraine before. Then to some hardware news that you can really sink your teeth into, Ukraine's Ministry of Defense unveiled a new Long Neptune cruise missile variant featuring lateral bulges that reportedly house extra fuel to extend strike range beyond the standard R360 versions. The official rollout was part of a display of defense industry hardware eligible for co-production under the Build with Ukraine program. This long-range variant was shown alongside the original Neptune family, and on that matter, with Kyiv confirming at the event that the Neptune class has been used in over 50 strikes in the past year now. While exact deployment details for the bulged model remain scarce, published specifications and engineering indicators suggest the new version could reach up to 1,000 kilometers or 600 miles or so, which is roughly triple the range of the earlier anti-ship configuration. Then to more hardware news, the age of mini missiles, where Europe is sharpening its response to Russia's drone campaign with a new class of compact interceptors. One model leading the charge is the Nordic Air Defense Kruger 100, a battery-powered drone interceptor that replaces much of the traditional sensor propulsion complexity with software-defined controls. It's designed to be cheap, fast, and portable, and can be launched by hand from mobile launchers. At the same time, Ukrainian forces are employing French-Belgian systems optimized to harvest the destructive potential of mini warheads. Rockets built by Thales via its Belgian subsidiary now carry airburst warheads in the 70mm class. When detonated, the warhead disperses thousands of steel pellets in a wide cloud, shredding individual drones or even small swarms. The two approaches are complementary. The Kruger 100 avoids explosive effects, relying on kinetic interception and software speed to hit its targets, while the Thales rockets deliver spread fragmentation to destroy them outright at close range. Together, they reflect a shift toward lower-cost, scalable, and rapidly producible systems, filling the gap between rifle shots, jamming, and multi-million-dollar surface-to-air missile systems. It's innovation in the name of defense and freedom that may never cease. So that has to be it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe. Thanks once again for all of the support, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!